I'm reading a poem entitled To a Palestinian Mother by Nina. My sister in humanity, in the pain of childbearing, in the struggle of child rearing, my sister in Islam, forgive me. I heard that they killed your children, slaughtered by the thousands and hundreds, young lives snatched from the jaws of destiny, young dreams to be dreamed no more. Forgive me. For no matter how many times I hear, read, or see it, I cannot know your pain. I cannot know what it is to have once felt a life kick and twist inside of you, and then a few brief years later, lay that once kicking legs, lifeless into the earth. I cannot know what it is to have once heard a voice cry and laugh for you, and then a few brief years later, lay that once smiling face, lifeless into the earth. I cannot know what it is to have once held your child, hold in your arms, and then a few brief years later, have gathered him up as blood, bones, and flesh. Forgive me. No matter how many times I hear, read, or see it, I cannot know your pain. For every number out of 100 dead was a child once, with a mother who lived, loved, and sacrificed for him. Forgive me. My helplessness shames me, my powerlessness lames me, my conscience explains me. So I will pray for you, and I will give what I can for you, and I will tell your story, and I will remember you, but with a heart full of humility. For no matter how many times I hear, read, or see it, I cannot know your pain. Forgive me, my sister, forgive me. May Allah have mercy on us and grant us justice. Free Palestine. Amen.
Lest we surrender, لن نستسلم. A quote by myself, Mohammed Dessoky. Hear the distant murmur, feel rumbling deep ground, feel the earth in tremors where hidden truth are found. It's not the roar of a tank, it's not a furious sky hum, but a call from within. Sing beats, different drum in your chest, with the rhythms, with thunder's bold clashes, a rhythm born out of struggle, beneath hot burning ashes, sending echoes of a message, clear, loud, and profound. Care, lest we surrender, where dreams have been drowned. In the maze of the lost, two shadows stand alone, parentless, yet furtherly. In the courage they've grown, clasping tight to his sister, as if shielding from a storm. In the boat and defiance, a new hope is born like a thunder in a heartbeat, a relentless thud sound. Yet, lest we surrender, by hope we are bound. And amidst lifeless ruins, a girl, unbound, she stands, seemed fallen, but a moment, now feet on her lands, sprung up from the ashes, queen-spirited and crowned, waving up her resilience, shines hopeful and proud, like a thunder in a heartbeat, a relentless thud sound. Yet, lest we surrender, by hope we are bound. Like a thunder in a heartbeat, In adversity it grows. From beneath all that rubble, a resilient soul shows. With each blow you endure, in your spirit ignites, and you fight through the days, and you fight through the nights, with every drop, tear, and smile. All the courage you engender, no time left for despair. There are no hopes to surrender. Hope. Hope lingers in the shadows, but yet never is it lost. In the search for a finder, to be found, at what cost? Each heartache endured, hope stems, sweet and dear. In the lost and the lonely, its presence grows dear. ترفع رأسك كي تتكلم وتطأطئها وأنا أعلم لكني والقلب جارح لن أستسلم وغمار العالم يتساءل فمتى نأمل ومتى نقهر الأمل بنا كي يتحرك كي نتقدم فاعلم يا من جئت لتفهم أن أبدا لن نستسلم الحق طريق نقطعه والنصر عنيد نخدعه واليوم إذا يسقط ليلا فغدا ننتيه ونرجعه والأمل إذا صار سرابا قصرا بالأمل تطلعه فاعلم يا من جئت خرابا أن أبدا لن نستسلم. All we march, get united in every word and every deed. One hand for one cause. Be the change which they need. In the depths of despair, your action, a lifeline. In our unity, therefore, as well as yours intertwined, your heart roars with the thunder, with a whisper, with a call. Stand tall, unproven, and then break every wall. Unheard and unseen, no more shall you be. In the clamor and the chaos, your truth they will see. Speak out against silence. Let your voice soar high. Stand taller, unprudent, and unite, and divide like a thunder in a heartbeat, a relentless thought sound. Yet, lest we surrender, by hope we are out. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I please invite Qare, Ijaaz, Ahmed, Chisti to the stage? He will be sharing with us a Quran recitation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة. أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. والله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. والله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر. سبحان الله. سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى. يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. وهو العزيز الحكيم. صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you very much, Imam Sahab. Assalamu alaikum, hello, and good evening to everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you for joining us at our Friends of Al-Aqsa event, Hope in the Time of Darkness. We have brought you together this evening to share, hopefully, a little hope and inspiration with you in these times that seem dark and getting even darker. This evening, we have a special lineup of speakers, those with lived experience of the ongoing genocide in Gaza, as well as individuals and campaigners who have a wealth of experience working tirelessly for the freedom and for justice for Palestine. So without further ado, I would like to invite our first guest speaker up, Mr. Mohammed Wafi and his son Moustafa, please. While they make their way to the stage, Mr. Mohammed Wafi is an engineer and a local businessman here in Newcastle, living here for over 2 decades, originally from Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip. Up to date, unfortunately, Mohammed, who is a good friend, has lost more than 32 family members, as well as having his home destroyed. Mohammed will be speaking on behalf of the Palestinian community in Newcastle.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I am honored to be here today and speak on behalf of the Palestinian community in Newcastle. I'm Palestinian from Khan Yunis. Without you, I wouldn't be standing here today to convey the suffering of my people in Gaza. I know you feel the pain of Palestinians, but believe me, the reality is that their suffering and pain are much greater than what you feel. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to convey to you some of the pains of my family members. Allow me to tell you some of their wishes. The wish to drink clean water. The wish to sleep without hearing explosions. Feel warmth without their tents collapsing due to rain. They want to stop thinking about losing their children or someone getting injured and having to endure pain because there are no painkillers to elevate their suffering. They are tired, and we are tired. They wish to return to their homes. That's our wishes at the moment. All we want is to stop this barbaric aggression, stop the ethnic cleansing, stop the genocide, stop the occupation, and to live in peace and security. And now allow me to introduce to you Soul of my soul, Ruh al-Ruh, my son Moustafa Wafi.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. First of all, I want to thank everyone who praised me and described me as a hero because I responded to Mr. Sunak's words when he called us idiots. But the truth is, I am not a hero. The real heroes are the children of Gaza who endure the harshest conditions of life and are killed every day. They are the real superheroes to me. Secondly, allow me to respond once again to Mr. Sunak, but in a different way. We expected the Prime Minister to come out publicly and condemn the killing of children and to demand a ceasefire. But instead, he came out and called us idiots. Who is the idiot? Is the idiot the one who demands freedom passage of ships to the occupation in protest against their continued killing of innocents in Gaza? Who is the real idiot? I believe you all know the answer. Mr. Sunak, you have 2 children. Mr. Sunak, you have 2 children. Do you want your children to experience what the children of Gaza are going through? Of course not. So stop supporting the killer and stand with oppressed victims. I know you may not be able to, but you can stop the genocide. We want to live in peace and security, just like your children. Your children and the children of the world are no better than the children of Gaza. The children of Gaza love peace. There is no peace without peace in Palestine. There is no peace without peace in Palestine. The war starts there, and peace starts there in Palestine. I will repeat what Yasser Arafat said at the United Nations when he said, I have come to you holding an olive branch in one hand and a fighter rifle in the other. So do not let the olive branch fall from my hand. Do not let the olive branch fall from my hand. Do not let the olive branch fall from my hand. Thank you for being on the right side of history.
Thank you to Mohammed and Moustafa and to the rest of the speakers. You have to keep up and in line with that. Standing ovations and at least 4 rounds of applause throughout your speech, please. Thank you so much, Moustafa. Up next, we have one of my favourites, even though you're not meant to have favourites, are you? Originally from County Durham, we have the wonderful Yvonne Ridley, British author and journalist, who holds several committee positions with the Alba Party in Scotland. Yvonne made global headlines when she was captured by the Taliban in 2001 after the events of September the 11th. After this, Yvonne went on to convert to Islam and has been a vocal supporter of Palestine and has been since childhood. It's not just an adult thing that she's picked up. She's been vocally supporting Palestine for many years since her childhood in Durham. She's undertaken numerous speaking tours, as she is here today speaking to us. She's been around the world, countries such as America, Europe, as well as Australia. Yvonne has been called something close to a celebrity in the Islamic world. They are not my words, they are the words of journalist Rachel Cook. And more recently, in 2008, Yvonne was voted the most recognisable woman in the Islamic world by Islam Online. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Yvonne. Thank you. Thank you.
Brothers, sisters, comrades, salam alaikum. I want to dedicate this talk to a little girl called Eyad Tbaileh. I'm sure most of you will have heard of her name. I'm so scared, please come. These were her last words from 6-year-old Eyad Tbaileh. She was talking to a Palestinian Red Crescent call centre 50 miles away from Gaza City. in Ramallah. Hind was trapped in a bullet-ridden family car, surrounded by the bodies of her aunt and uncle and their 5 children. This child pleaded for 3 hours with the Red Crescent to come and save her. But the aid agency lost contact with the ambulance crew that had been dispatched. It emerged later that the ambulance had been blown up, both paramedics had been killed. The fate of the paramedics and Hind remained unknown for a week, but the story persisted and eventually went viral. Many of us hoped against hope this story would have a happy ending. It didn't. The truth is, none of us can help Hind now. She was murdered in cold blood by Israeli military. The bodies of her rescuers were also found nearby, slain by the brutal occupying forces. Hind has lost her voice. She can no longer speak, so tonight I will speak for her. And my anger is directed very much towards the BBC. For instance, have you noticed how Arab children are always found dead, whereas in the Ukraine, white European children are killed in Russian airstrikes? And the 2 paramedics who managed on Saturday to reach the area where they found Hind's family car, its windscreen and dashboard smashed to pieces, bullet holes scattered across the side. Their bodies were later found nearby. Yes, those paramedics too had been murdered. Murder is the only word to describe their deaths after Israeli forces gave them clearance to enter and go and rescue Hind. But it's not a word the BBC used in its sanitised script for what is obviously a war crime. What the BBC fails to realise is that by sanitising its language, it is complicit in the murder of innocent children like Hind. It is giving a green light to war crimes being carried out by the occupation forces, and it is whitewashing their murderous intent. As a journalist, words are the tools of my trade, and I cannot for the life of me see why fellow writers are going along with this sanitised and possibly racist narrative. It is obvious Hind and her family were massacred by Israeli forces, but an article published online by the BBC is headlined, Hind Rajab, 6, found dead in Gaza days after phone calls for help, implying that she died of natural causes when we know she didn't. The child was killed in a murderous act which is clearly defined as a war crime. The BBC systematically dehumanises Palestinians. The journalist concludes in her article by stating that Hamas uses ambulances to transport weapons, as if to justify the murder of the 2 heroic paramedics and all the other paramedics who are working on the ground in Gaza. This report is racist and sanitises the brutal truth of what happened to Hind and her family. Gaza is not a war, nor is it an invasion. A friend not given to polemics described what is happening as cold-blooded mass murder that far outweighs the crimes of Hamas fighters on October 7. Israel is intent on owning all of Palestine, from the river to the sea, and is intent on wiping Palestine from the map. Everything it accuses others of doing, it is actually doing itself. It's called psychological projection. Israel cares nothing for those who might get in their way, whether it is a child like Hind or 3 of their own comrades, the hostages, who were waving white flags when they were slaughtered. The story of the short life and death of little Hind Rajab is emblematic of the shocking ruthlessness of Benjamin Netanyahu. We know he's finished. We know as soon as he ends this monstrous war, we know that he will politically be gone. So he has absolutely nothing to lose, which makes him the most dangerous man on the planet today. Now, I don't want your tears because they can't help Hind now, but I do want something from you. I want to see an uprising, a rebellion that will shake Westminster to the core. When injustice is the law, resistance is our duty. I'm talking about the most powerful form of resistance we have. Peaceful resistance. Sit-ins, die-ins, marches, protests, rallies. And do not underestimate your own individual powers as boycotters. The BDS movement is incredibly powerful, which is why there are moves to try and outlaw boycotting products. We have to keep on rising. We have to keep on resisting. This is our moment. This is our version of the Arab Spring, and we must show the global South that there are many, many of us in the West who do care about what is being done in our name. The first thing we do is target the general election and make sure all of those politicians who voted for genocide instead of a ceasefire are punished. If there's no one worth voting for, stand up yourself and go and vote instead of sitting back and thinking, well, I'm not even going to bother. There's nobody on the paper that I want to vote for. Even so, go to vote. And when you get your paper, write ceasefire now on it, or free Palestine. At the end of every election, all the candidates and their agents are called together to inspect the ballot papers. Imagine if they are confronted with hundreds or even thousands of spoiled ballot papers with the words Free Palestine. That is how we get back at the establishment. We are sending a strong and powerful message. We are showing those in Westminster, we are the masters. We are not the servants. This Tory government is forcing good, law-abiding citizens into rebellion because it is the government which is supporting extremists, pushing an evil ideology which defies civilization and humanity. I am talking about Zionism. While other parties have avoided the minefield of Judaism, Zionism, and anti-Semitism, I think that we here are very clear today. Not all Jews are Zionists, and not all Zionists are Jews. We welcome and embrace those courageous Jewish cousins who are here with us today. We need, and they are courageous. I would say to them, we need your support like never before. Labour, to its eternal shame, has in recent years targeted and persecuted Jews out of the party. You're in good company, Jeremy. There's about 70 Jewish people who have been driven out because they dared to criticize the Zionist state. Apparently, they are the wrong sort of Jews. Who knew? But in Keir Starmer's book, anyone who doesn't support Israel or is critical of the Zionist state falls into that category. Most Labour politicians are afraid to say anything critical about the Frankenstein monster created by Britain and America. Yes, Israel, the Zionist state, barely the size of a South African game park, is their creation. Zionism is their creation. Most of our lives we have spent resisting, petitioning, marching, protesting, as those of us of faith and no faith came together to fight the monster that is Zionism. Our cries of free, free Palestine were ignored by a government that appeared intoxicated with the power to persecute anyone who objected to Israel and its extremist ideology. I have always stood up for Palestinian rights, and if we believe that these rights are being threatened or eroded in any way, then we will fight back and resist the evils of Zionism. Starmer has now embraced the Frankenstein monster, and he will trample over Gaza's dead babies to make sure the monster survives. He will ignore the pleas and cries of newborn babies who might be lucky if they can live a few hours. He turns a deaf ear to the cries of their mothers who are dying while giving birth on cold rubble after these blitzes in Gaza. Starmer is also a monster in my view and must not be rewarded with the keys to number 10. Our freedoms and liberties have been eroded. Where will it all end? In the Alaba Party, we want to focus on poverty, energy, insecurity, housing, welfare, education, and making peace, not fueling war. Now more than ever, on both sides of the border, we must stand together and unite as one against this extremist ideology in our midst, which holds the Palestinians under a brutal occupation and Westminster under a political occupation. I don't want my MP bought and owned by Tel Aviv, but if you vote Labour, that's likely what you'll get. For the first time in our lives, we have made Starmer realise he is actually the servant and not the bloody master, and he's terrified. He must dance to our tune or get the hell out of British politics. Hope for peace and reconciliation for the Palestinians has been ruthlessly and cruelly crushed. And when you remove hope, all that is left is rebellion and insurrection. And we have already seen the signs of rebellion sweeping the country as law-abiding citizens protest at council meetings in Camden, in Middlesbrough, and in other towns around, to also political party fundraisers in Cheadle, where there's the Redbridge Action Group have supported their candidate, Leanne Mohammed, who will be challenging the genocide-supporting Labour Zionist poster boy, Wes Streeting, in Ilford North. He's another one who's worried. He's another one who probably wishes he had voted for a ceasefire. Their independent candidate is strong on the NHS, racism, Islamophobia and poverty, and she's also pro-Palestinian. The message is loud and clear, as Nelson Mandela once said. We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians. Well, if it was good enough for Mandela, a man who cherished freedom and justice in equal measure, then it's good enough for us here tonight. We are all proud of Mandela's South Africa. He might be gone, but his legacy never shone as brightly as it did in the International Court of Justice last month. Israel is now being investigated for genocide. Finally, I want to thank the Palestinians, because without their amazing courage, we would not have seen the sham of our own democracy in the 21st century. Our politicians, not all of them, I'm thinking of Jeremy, but our politicians have been bought and paid for by the Zionist state of Israel. Zionist control is no longer a conspiracy theory. It's happening here and now, right before our eyes. Keir Starmer has been politically castrated or caponized by Tel Aviv, and he can't even say the word ceasefire. Look at the front bench MP just down the road in Middlesbrough, Andy MacDonald, when he said at a Palestinian rally, "We won't rest until we have justice, until all people, Israelis and Palestinians, between the river and the sea, can live in peaceful liberty." Nothing controversial there. And then he went on to shout "Free Palestine," which I'm sure we'll hear many times tonight. A few hours later, Downing Street said it wasn't acceptable for people to chant from the river to the sea. It was deeply offensive, apparently. Well, you know what? I find genocide deeply offensive, Rishi Sunak. So when Downing Street criticised this Labour MP, what did Keir Starmer do? Tell the Tories to go to hell? No, he had McDonald suspended. He warned, you vote Labour and you get the Tories. Vote Tories and you get Labour. And that is the choice that is facing you at the next general election. While that was happening to McDonald at the end of October, we were still sleepwalking into a nightmare existence until the Palestinians ripped the blinds from our eyes. Without their help, we would still be like a zombie nation, intoxicated by consumerism, leading selfish, indulgent lives, racking up debt on the never-never, too far down in the poverty trap to wake up and see what was being done in our names. I don't think anyone in here would disagree with the cry of never again, and we mean it. We can never roll back the years or turn back the clock to the 1930s and stop the genocide of 6 million Jews, gypsies, disabled people and trade unionists. But my God, we can stop this genocide of Palestinians today. When my grandchildren ask me what I did to stop the genocide, I hope I will be able to give a good account of myself. And if I have to break the law to do it, I will. And no, I will not calm down or settle down. I've come to my native Newcastle from my home in Scotland to give fair warning to the British government. I've come to settle up for the Palestinians, and while I'm on with it, for the freedom of Scotland. Just as there are in Scotland, there are great principles of political freedom and natural justice woven into the Palestinian struggle. And if we don't get them justice, there will never be peace in this world ever again. The struggles of the black slaves, the struggles of the Palestinians, and the struggles of the working classes are all interwoven in a great tapestry of historical injustice. If we don't deliver for the Palestinians, we consign the rest of this world to one of misery where might is right. I don't want to live in a world being dictated to anymore by tyrants. We might not have shackles on our wrists and ankles, but we are still being enslaved in Tory Britain by the robber bankers, the filthy rich, and the self-entitled aristocracy. Do you really think they see us all as equals here today? Do you think they see a fellow human being when they look at the misery of the Palestinians in Gaza? Do you think the next general election will really change our lives for the better if we get rid of the Tories and get Starmer instead? all we'll be doing is changing one slave owner for another. Documents like Magna Carta are not going to change our lives, but rallies like this can. We need to put the fear of God into the boss classes, those in Westminster who think we are their servants. Without our blood, sweat and tears, you'd be nobody, Rishi Sunak and David Cameron. The Palestinians' blood, sweat and tears have given us the chance to open our eyes and see what is really happening on the ground in Gaza. Never again, never again, never again. No sovereign power has the right to govern without the consent of the people. Israel has lost that right to have any guiding hand in the destiny of Palestine. Today, I pledge my allegiance and loyalty to the Palestinian people, and I will not rest until every one of them is free from the evil twins of colonialism and Zionism. As Benjamin Franklin once said, we must all hang together, or assuredly we will hang separately. Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina! Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the great suggestion, Yvonne, on exactly what I'm going to be filling in on my next election with Eyad Tbaileh. So thanks for that top tip there. Without further ado, we move on to our next speaker, Dr. Eyad Tbaileh, trainee GP, ethnically Palestinian from Nablus. Dr. Tbaileh will share with us some of his experiences as a Palestinian descendant from families that were ethnically cleansed during the 1948 Nakba.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Peace be upon you all. Thank you all for coming and thank you for having me. My name is Eyad Tbaileh, and today I'll share with you a speech written in poem format titled Palestinian I Am. I hope with this piece you get to empathize and understand the struggles of Palestinians a bit better and view them in a new light. Thank you. Palestinian I am. These are the words I use to introduce myself as a form of continued resistance to all those who want to erase my existence. Palestinian I am. At birth, I lost what matters most to any being, safety and security. Due to colonization and occupation, many were forced into fleeing. Palestinian I am. I grew up watching my people vilified, watching those in power try and make our existence and humanity nullified. Palestinian I am. At the age of 5, I had to come to terms with the death of myself and my family, as the world showed me that our lives had no sanctity. Palestinian I am. My grandparents, with the grace of God, have ensured that my parents and I were born into safety. So despite my survival kit at a young age, I knew I couldn't be hasty. I knew that there is more than one way to help my people and resist. Many nights were spent thinking how best I should assist. I came to the conclusion that God has blessed people differently. Examining my own blessings amongst many were intelligence and safety. And the desire to alleviate the pain and suffering of people influenced me greatly. Hence, a career in medicine appealed to me, all in the hopes it brings me closer to the day that Palestine will finally be free. Palestinian I am. At a young age, I was forced to abandon my childhood and learn to be a man. As I was born an immigrant on a foreign land, cut from an extended family, I had no clan. Therefore, if anything happened to my father, I needed to be ready and have some sort of plan. Palestinian I am. I grew up watching the world support me with words, but not in deed. It made me feel like the world has abandoned me in my time of need. Early on, I realized that we live in a world where a piece of paper determines your life, whether you live a life of comfort or one full of strife. I also realized that power corrupts and that governments rarely reflect the will of its people, which is a tragedy and should really be made illegal. This forced me to lose all interest in this world and dissociate, as the power of government was frequently being abused to divide, oppress, and discriminate. As crimes are usually sanctioned by the few in positions of power with the unreasonable expectation that the general public will bear the cost and not feel sour. It is honestly, comically funny to realize just how similar we all are, regardless where in the world we hail from, near or far. Palestinian, I am. I grew up with the threat of deportation looming over me daily, hence the only roots I was ever allowed to build were shallow and shady. Palestinian, I am. I learned no matter the country I lived in, a second-class citizen is the best I should hope for. Therefore, I needed to develop thicker skin. As time and time again, I watched people turn on me for either having the nerve to excel in a system designed to limit me, or due to having the audacity to exercise the same rights and liberties as them, as my own human rights, I am expected to condemn. Palestinian, I am. I grew up witnessing lies and misinformation about us, our history, and our religion. Like wildfire spread, all efforts to convince the world that the legitimacy of our humanity and our ownership to our land is dead. Western governments chanting, Israel has the right to exist, and the Palestinian people have no right to resist. Israel has the right to commit genocide, and the Palestinian people must always either be dead or occupied. The desire for a homeland is one I can empathize with and relate to, but that does not justify nor give legitimacy to terrorism, colonization, ethnic cleansing, murder, theft, occupation, apartheid, sexual assault, torture, and genocide. Nor does it give Western governments the right to deny our rights and take Israel's side. Palestinians had nothing to do with the Holocaust. Therefore, they should not be expected to be the ones to bear that heavy cost. Such racist arrogance and delusions of supremacy, genuinely believing they have the right to evict an entire population from their native nation because they deemed it a necessity. The Western-backed terrorist, Zionist European immigrants took the land of Palestine and its people hostage and demanded statehood and land as their ransom, thereby ensuring Palestinian bondage. Israel gained statehood through violence, terrorism, coercion, and duress, and this fact is true, but rarely addressed. Making false claim to the land, neglecting to mention it belonged to the Canaanites before them, a fact, but spreading the truth is not their intention. Now, DNA evidence exists that prove that Palestinians are considered part of modern-day Canaanite descendants and are therefore the legitimate owners of the land and are its historic attendants. If Zionist European Jewish immigrants truly wanted to coexist, then instead of choosing colonization and genocide, they would have chosen to live with Palestinians side by side, living by the law of the land, which is the expectation from every civilized woman and man. Palestinian I am, having to defend my existence daily, as from the constant media smear campaigns of my people, I'm always wary. Having to remind people of common sense, as Western government and mainstream media lies has blurred everyone's lens. Theft is theft. So even if you get away with it, you are still a thief, as you can't magically gain legitimate ownership with theft, hence you won't ever enjoy any relief. Murder is murder, so even if you leave no witnesses, you're still a murderer, and everyone around you will notice as your humanity diminishes. Those who willingly participate in the crime of colonization are criminals and are not innocent. But holding that view, despite being factual, is unfortunately considered a form of dissent. Knowing that the vast majority of Israelis above the age of 18 are conscripted into the IDF is Israel's well-known national policy So why is referring to them as military or ex-military personnel instead of untrained civilians such a controversy? Palestinian, I am. Being a Palestinian in Palestine is in of itself made akin to a crime, one that is getting worse with time. Did you know that it is a criminal offense for a Palestinian to collect rainwater? As how dare they gain unauthorized access to water to quench their thirst before their slaughter? Did you know that it is a criminal offense for a Palestinian to wave their Palestinian flag? As how dare they keep their native identity and heritage alive? That is enough justification to have them gagged. Did you know it is a criminal offense to even mourn their dead or celebrate the return of their hostages publicly? Demonizing their humanity and making it a crime has always been Israel's aim, both domestically and internationally. Did you know that Palestinians daily get sexually assaulted, tortured, and murdered in jest? A constant reminder that they are always under the mercy of their colonizer and occupier, made to feel Israel's feet on their necks, firmly pressed. When Hamas conducted a paramilitary operation, they made their intentions clear. They wanted to obtain hostages to negotiate the liberation of Palestinians unjustly incarcerated. This was made apparent to our ears. They made it clear that they rejected Zionism, colonization, and occupation, as which human would accept being enslaved anywhere, let alone on their own land, their own nation. They declared they have no animosity towards the Jewish people, as they too are a people of faith, who the Palestinians have coexisted with peacefully for centuries before Zionism became commonplace. Many have accused Hamas of deliberately targeting civilians and committing war crimes, while Hamas declared that any loss of innocent life was unintentional, as collateral damage is a tragedy that happens during war times. Since targeting civilians and torturing hostages is against their creed, therefore they welcomed an independent investigation to prove that the words match their deeds. Now let us take a look at Israel on the other hand, a band of terrorist criminals living off stolen land. They took this attack as justification to hasten their genocide. As don't get it wrong, a genocide was always taking place, just the pace of it changed. It was intensified. Waging a war against the besieged, defenseless, innocent people that have no military, trying their hardest with their lives to paint to the world that they are moral visionaries. Their war nearly exclusively targeted innocent, defenseless civilians. Their aim was to level Gaza to the ground, so they targeted infrastructures and pavilions, denied them food, water, fuel, healthcare, and electricity, a televised, hastened genocide for all the world to see, accusing Hamas of using civilians as human shields, trying their hardest to make the people forget that the people of Gaza are besieged, and therefore Hamas cannot freely move to fight in another location like barren fields. They tried their hardest to paint collective punishment and war crimes as moral and just, unaware that if their own logic was applied to them, Israel will cease to exist. It will be nothing but rubble and dust. They tried their hardest to paint the murder of tens and of thousands of innocent, defenseless civilians as justified collateral damage, unaware that we see through their lives violence, terrorism, colonization, occupation, and genocide for what it is: unjust, brutal, and savage. With futility, they try to deflect their guilt by projecting their crimes onto others to justify the murders of innocent, defenseless sons, daughters, fathers, and mothers. They lie to our faces, claiming that they uphold international law, while at the same time doing all they can to impede independent investigations, the truth they don't want us to draw. They try their hardest to paint themselves as the victim, maliciously labeling any legitimate criticism of their actions as anti-Semitic. That is their system. Banking on the fact that the majority of the world is oblivious to the fact that Palestinians are Semites too. Hence the murder and oppression of Palestinians is anti-Semitic, and that is a fact. It is 100% true. And if you dare and support the Palestinian people in their legitimate struggle for freedom, liberty, and self-determination, you are maliciously labeled either as a terrorist sympathizer, or anti-Semitic, and subjected to all different forms of punitive measures and discrimination. As how dare you raise your voice to advocate for the vulnerable and oppressed, people shouting, go back to your own country, if with the rights you are so obsessed. I guess this is what this world has come to. We're standing up for what is right and just is being labeled a crime too. Palestinian I am. As a Palestinian following the Islamic faith, I believe that we all ultimately share the same family, the same lineage, as we all came from Adam and Eve, peace be upon them. Peace be upon them. Hence, our collective origins carry the same weight. I believe that everything in existence was created by one God, the same one God that we all share, and that He is perfect and not flawed. That His policy and teachings amongst many are justice and a meritocracy, with no place for nepotism and so-called genetic supremacy. He wants us all to know Him and His guidance better and learn all about His exalted names, attributes, and character traits, so that we can make informed decisions and use our free will to determine our fates. He wants us to prove our devotions to Him and compete in creating a world where we take good care of ourselves and others, as we are all equally His creations, uniting us all as sisters and brothers. That is why my faith teaches me that God's people are meant to strive to create a better tomorrow, one full of smiles and unity, minimizing any sorrows. That is why God has always been and will always be with the wrongfully oppressed, and this fact consoles us whenever we are feeling low or depressed. As history provides proof of this claim by showing us time and time again, the falls of nations tend to be consequences of their unjust practices. Therefore, it is never a question of if, but a question of when, a truth that history witnesses and time establishes. Palestinian I am, a symbol of resistance. They fear our indomitable will and persistence. A reminder to the world that doing the right thing is a must, and in God, first and foremost, we put all of our trust. As defending and reclaiming one's life, family, human rights, property, and land is necessary, even if powerful Western governments choose to be adversaries. Doing what is right remains right no matter the outcome, or else evil and corruption becomes a daily occurrence and will even become local custom. Palestinian I am, witnessing the people of the world advocate and stand up for me, warms my heart and fills me with glee, as it shows me that I am still remembered, that I still matter, even amongst all the negative, constant media chatter. I am not forgotten. I am still alive in the hearts and souls of righteous people full of drive. To God and to you, I am grateful, as your care, empathy, humanity, advocacy, and actions keep me hopeful and faithful that one day justice will be served, peace will be achieved, and I will get to see a free Palestine from its river to its sea. Thank you.
We will be giving you a small break after this next speaker, so it's getting a bit hot in here. Maybe you need to get a quick drink in before we carry on for the second part. But before the break, we have Schofield, full-time Palestinian activist, local legend with a life dedicated to social justice and equality. She also did happen to be a former Labour councillor in Newcastle City Council, but that's further down the list of priorities as far as I'm concerned. So without further ado, Schofield, you can come up to the stage, please.
Greetings to everybody here tonight, and it is wonderful to see so many people. Before I begin, I have just been asked to make sure that everybody knows about the coach that's going down on the 17th for the big national gathering in London. Anybody who's interested, who will be very welcome, please go to the Stop the War table at the end. Is PSC and Stop the War are doing this together, so everybody's support will be great. Well, we've heard so much, and like many of you, I'm very humbled and appalled by the stories that we have and people's experiences. And I just want to dedicate a few words I have to say to a wonderful young Palestinian friend of mine from Gaza. She came here like so many young people do, on a scholarship, thinking that she was specialising in something that would be very good for her country. It was an ordinary thing to do, and she was meant to be going back in October. She found that because of October the 7th, that was not impossible. And this young woman, who is the same age as my grandchildren, so I cannot even begin to think what this must be like for her family. She no longer knows whether her family, who are still in Gaza, are alive or dead, or whether they are. She hears 3 minutes, sometimes if she's lucky, that they have been in one place, then they've been shipped off to another. Now, her parents are living in appalling conditions, in tents, and that is if they're very lucky. They're starving, their famine is likely, they are all of them becoming ill. I just want to say, incredibly distressed by what it is like for a young person to be in this horrific situation that she is. And I know that there are many other young people, not just young people, but many people in Newcastle, from Gaza and the West Bank, who are suffering in this way. And so having done that, I just want to make a point really. During France's war against Algeria, the French writer and philosopher Simone de Beauvoir said she was ashamed to be French at the time. In her words, I could no longer bear my fellow citizens. I wanted to stop. I wanted to stop being an accomplice in this war. That is precisely how I feel as an English woman at this point. I feel so ashamed at the refusal of major political parties, but also not just the complicity now, but Britain's complicity in the whole Zionist project. It goes back a long way. It didn't start on October 7th. But the main points I want to make is why will people not make a demand, not a demand for a ceasefire. And one of the things I think is contributing to that is the distortion of language. So many times we read in the press, we hear in the press about what's going on. And we hear about weapons of mass destruction. But that's what we hear. We hear about the bombs. We hear about the guns. Those are operated by men and women. That's the real issue about the weapons of mass destruction. And one of Israel's favourite sort of mantras is that they are mowing the lawn. As if that is some magical thing, the language suggests of a lawnmower not operated by something. These dreadful words that they're using to mask the terrible suffering of people and the intent of genocide is something I think is worth looking at. Now, men and women and children have been tortured and humiliated in the most savage ways in Gaza. But I just want to make a point really about how we begin to look at the real reality of the fact that it's people who are doing this. It's people, and they should be named. They are perpetrators, they should be named. And one of the areas that I have a particular concern with and have for many, many years is the use of sexual violence and rape as a tool of conflict and war. And I just want to highlight that as something that we need to talk about. This is being done to mainly women, sexual violence, mainly to women, by men. It is not just done by some sort of object over there. It's talked about in these objectifying terms. We need to look very seriously of who is involved in perpetrating the sexual violence and rape. Now, one thing is that the reason for using sexual violence is very particular and obvious. Just as the Israelis are killing children, the attack on women particularly is to remove hope of the future for the Palestinian people. And sexual violence as a tool of Israel's systematic aggression against the Palestinians has been for 75 years. It hasn't just been since October 7th. It's part of its colonial project of expansion and the use of ethnic cleansing and now genocide to remove Palestinians from their land and away from their, to place them for their homeland. I just come back to, we must begin to think of naming the perpetrators. It's such an important thing, not easy to do. Since 1967, Israel has killed over 17,000 women. That's the ones we know about and are recorded. It is many, many more. And that number has grown hugely since October 7th. Most of Gaza, but also across the West Bank. For those women who have been released, we are hearing horrific accounts, such as Qare, the feminist politician, and famously, of course, the young woman Eyad Tbaileh, who, when freed, showed the world what was happening to women in prisons. And I think it would be really to sort of see that so many women who this has happened to are afraid to speak. They're fearful on all sorts of reasons. But the cruelties and the abominations that have happened to women has included abduction, threats to their family, threats to burn their children if they don't comply, but also threats to them of what they will do to their bodies. Not just threats, but Tbaileh and others have shown is that those are real. Women are being raped in all sorts of terrible situations. And I just want to make the point that the lack of international condemnation for the flagrant collective punishment of women using sexual violence is appalling and unjust. Just as it is appalling to talk about bombs, guns, happening as if nobody is responsible. We have to get to the responsibility of people. And in saying that, I do think it's important to mention the young men and women in Israel who are refusing to take part. That is just as important. I just wanted to end really, because I think the power of words is so important. And so I just wanted to talk about Qare, who is a wonderful Palestinian poet. She was sent to prison for a poem. She had the most terrible, dreadful, brutal experiences in prison that included sexual violence and rape. So she was not only banned and censored and jailed, but she had the added punishment. And that followed a video publication of her poem, Resist. So the point being, and the Israelis are right, and no, it's not as much of a small thing that they're killing journalists and intellectuals and poets and artists. It's not an unintentional thing, it's totally intentional. It's to take away the future. And what I want to say was finally, that in homage to all Palestinian women and men who are suffering in the most terrible ways, and solidarity with their right to resist, I want to be really with the words of Qare. And I want to ask us all to support this totally. She went to prison and suffered the most dreadful experience.